Taking this little baby off-road is like taking a hotel suite into the wilderness. But this week it is the Nissan Patrol Ti Warrior. You might have seen a recent story that we published about the new Nissan Patrol having been released overseas, or at least pictures of it. And this one has been out a very long time. But it's not unusual for people to take a very expensive SUV, as the Patrol is, and then take it to an aftermarket place and spend another 20, 30, 40 grand. You might have a camper up on top, a rooftop pod for clothes or whatever. But almost always, you get a little extra height, you get some bash plates, you get a few other odds and sods to help you off-road. The problem with that, of course, is that they are not guaranteed by the manufacturer. That's the first thing. So it brings us neatly to this. This is by Premcar, and they paired up with Nissan to make what they've done to the car factory warranty. So if anything goes wrong with any of these Premcar editions, you can just take it to the Nissan dealer and they'll sort it out. As if this wasn't tall enough already, you get an extra 50mm in ride height. Now, unlike some of the opposition, this doesn't have fancy uppy-downy suspension. So have a look at the articulation in this in a little off-road scene that was shot at the launch. There's a shot of some warriors here going over some of the most unbelievable terrain, and this really is the most this is going to be expected to do. Especially the deep gullies, that is not something that can be tackled just by any old SUV. Getting in is an issue, I'm not gonna lie. This thing is a long way off the ground. But in the back you are well catered for. There's a quick look at the third row, and I've got one seat folded down and one seat up. In the second row you get a second row of vents, a third row of cooling, a couple of USB ports, and below that a 12-volt port. The floor is nearly flat. I say nearly because remember, this is an internal combustion car, which we will hear in a minute, and it is very impressive. But have a look at this. So I've got the seat set for me. That is a mountain of space, and that allows for the third row to have a little bit more space by me sliding the second row forward. Let's have a look at the back. Now remember, this still is a Patrol. At the end of the day, it is a luxury off-roader. But some of the things that they've added with this is the tow hitch. That's a Nissan thing. And some of the strongest attach points I've ever seen. I mean, that thing could tow a 747. Open this up, and this is the first surprise. It's a manual door. Gads. And the rear floor, the load lip, comes up to the top of my leg. In case you're wondering where the spare tyre is, it is up underneath. And inside you can see an enormous amount of load space with the third row down. With the third row up, it's a little bit less generous, but nonetheless, there's still quite a lot of it. There's another 12-volt socket here, and that's 120 watts max. So you can plug in a fridge or any of the other camping gear you're going to take with you to places like this. The interior has been Premcar'd as well. There's a little bit of Alcantara above the passenger seat with Warrior written in, but listen to this. I press the starter. That's one of the extra things you've gotten, is a bimodal exhaust for the 5.6 litre V8. Conventional V8, but it sounds absolutely brilliant. You can see the Warrior system is coming up. For some reason, when I drive out of an underground car park, this thing just will not find the radios again. So it's been warriored, and they've made some changes, some off-road changes. The Australian Patrols never got the international interior, which meant that we got this rather boring looking center console. But there are things that are really cool. There's a rear cooler, a fairly simple dash, a fairly simple console. The dash is just dials, the console just has this, what looks like a drop-in head unit. It does have the audio controls along the bottom, 2 zones of air conditioning under that, a third zone of cooling in the back, and then this command center. And the command center has all of the things that you're going to need for off-road driving, or on-road driving for that matter. There's a single setting for on-road, and that's 4 high road. That's it, that's your lot. Other than that, it's got hill descent control, the 4x4 lock, traction control off, and then there's on-road, sand, snow and rock. Now if you leave it in auto, it's going to fiddle the four-wheel drive as it sees fit. The thing that is disappointing about this modelled on the bottom of the range Patrol is that this is very analog. You've got this tiny little digital cluster in the middle, and then the rest are dials that look like they were taken from the 90s. The steering wheel, similarly, it does have controls, and it does have some on-road safety systems, but not a lot. All right. The other thing my pet hate is it has one of those foot-operated parking brakes. The work of the devil. Honestly, those things are just horrendous. I'll pick you up on the road. The thing about being such a big, heavy 2.6 ton car or thereabouts with a gross vehicle mass of 3.5 tons is that it's a lot to throw around, and it's very high set. You simply cannot corner this thing like your one Fangio. And that's all there is to it. If you want that sort of car, you need to get something else. But the sound of this V8, this quite old-fashioned V8, is glorious. It's a 7-speed automatic, as I said before, and it is a conventional automatic. None of that dual clutch nonsense, which would actually not survive off-road. It simply wouldn't. Clutches like that don't like slipping. Safety systems are operated by a separate button that's way down yonder. Because I've got no head-up display and I don't have much of a center display either, I can't really tell what the car's doing. All I know is that the cruise is on and that I've adjusted the distance to the car in front. The steering with those massive, well, they say they're all-terrain, but really it's off-road tyres. The steering is approximate at best. I really do love the sound of that V8. You can see where you're going in the front through using the windscreen, but going back, looking backwards, is often a bit of a drama, especially in big, hefty cars like this, where you could hide a small hatchback under that tailgate and never see it when you're reversing. So we've got this fairly high-mounted mirror dash monitor. One thing I did discover is that if you get this dirty, it's pretty awful. And also, the resolution on this is actually not all that brilliant. It's exactly what you'd expect a 2.6 ton vehicle to be like. It is big, it is bold, it is hefty, and it wallows through town. It wafts over these bumps like they aren't even there. Steering, very light. For all of you saying that you like your steering to have a bit of resistance to it, honestly, why? No, why? Especially when you're off your road, you want as much assistance as possible. But I do feel like I could climb a mountain. You do need to have deep pockets to buy it. You need to have deep pockets to put fuel in it. Refueling this is going to cost $250 to $300 depending on the day. It's an awful lot of money, especially if you go through one of those tanks a week. Nissan Patrol is actually one of my favourite cars because it can go anywhere. I didn't like this at the first few days of driving, but I came to really love it. As always, hit like, leave a comment, and just over there to subscribe.